Yeah, I have tons of footage of stray dogs, tons. But generally I don't spend more than a few minutes with them. The more I stay around, the more difficult it becomes. And then at some point you leave, you always leave. And when you do, it feels like a betrayal. So what remains is simple photos and shots of 5 seconds of their lives, and that's it. I realized that by doing so, I condemn them to anonymity as well. Even me, I think the worst part is knowing that they are wherever they are temporarily. It's never the same dogs the next season. So spending time and investing in them begins with the knowledge that you'll have that relationship taken away from you violently and prematurely. But even so, anonymity should not be proportional to the time you are bound to spend in this world. You don't deserve to be remembered because you stuck around for longer. In fact, it's quite the opposite, I think. Giving them a name and a story is what all victims of injustice deserve. So this time I decided to stay around, to observe them at different times of the day, different situations. There are two main groups of strays here by the sea. One is right on the port, and the other one a bit further away. And all around there are several ghosts that don't really belong anywhere. They haven't found a pack, they haven't found safety. Most of them have been around for at least a few months, so they've made a home for themselves here, and that's just obvious. It's a summer destination, so basically they're the ones keeping the place with life. We should be grateful. And they seem to be accepted, but I know that that's just tolerance, and if you ask most people, they prefer not to have them around, which is, for me, just stupid. It's like valuing the stones and the cement and everything inanimate that surrounds you more than you value something living, So this is the main pack, and they live right by the port. 90% of the time, they're quiet. They're just laying around. It's what our dogs do at home. They just find a place that's comfortable and sleep. That's the boss. He's a bit of a bully. You can see that he is full of himself. And whenever there's food, he will not let anyone else eat until he's finished and the others are left with scraps. And that's the only female of this pack. I've heard some people call her Canela, which means cinnamon, and it's a very common name for any dog that is brown. She carries herself around as if she owns a place. She's completely comfortable here. She's the one who has been here the longest. I remember seeing her for the first time in the summer of 2019. That's almost a year and a half. It's impressive staying alive for so long, being in a place like this. It's really impressive watching them sleep, because they sleep wherever. In the afternoon, they are usually completely relaxed. They can lay in the middle of the road as if that's a normal thing to do. And it is normal to them. Just like it is normal for our dogs to lay in any part of the house and feel comfortable there. These few square meters between the port, the coffee shop, and the restaurant, which is where the territory of the other pack starts, these few square meters are actually their home. It's more home to them than it is to any human around, really. There's always some excitement when the boat arrives, especially in the winter. There's something happening. Their favorite game is to chase cars, which can be scary if you care about the dogs and care about not running them over. But after a few times of observing how they do it, you realize that they are really very good at doing it without endangering themselves. Canela plays a lot. She loves to play. And even though she's the girl of the pack, you might not realize she's a girl because she's very dominant while playing. And that's the young teddy bear of the group. He's always happy and he's fluffy and he's very friendly. They all are, but he's more of a people's dog. Well, the type of people's dog that won't just sit by you, but will ask for some kind of interaction. He likes to be touched and petted and talked to. He's a brilliant, happy young boy. And this one is a more mature, tired version of his young friend. He's the type that looks like he's been around a bit more. At least in the beginning, when you first notice him, he looks like he could care less about anything. But once you make a connection, he's a lot more communicative than you'd think. Before the restaurants close, they go around a few times to look for food. They get their last bit of exercise before going to bed. And at night, you can't really see them around. They retreat to wherever it is they feel safe to sleep until the morning. And when they're not around, the whole place just seems freaking empty. I mean, it is as empty as can be in the winter, and not having something living around is like very eerie. This is the newest member. He's a very young boy. I actually saw him the first day he arrived to the port last summer. You could tell he was still a puppy then, maybe 8-9 months old. He's grown since then. It's as if he had to mature quickly and survive. And you can tell that he's the one that always gets the short end of the stick. He's the last one to eat, the last one to take initiative. He's hesitant about whether he's allowed to play with the others or not. A week before we left, we actually saw a new young male make his way to the port. He was coming from the seaside where there's literally nothing there. And I saw him as he realized that he was somewhere close to civilization, to humans, to other dogs. And within the next days, he was incorporated into the pack. Yeah, this one, I took him with me when I left. They're just so vulnerable when they are newly abandoned. And when you witness that vulnerability, it's heartbreaking. And he worked on me a lot. I mean, he groomed me into becoming his rescuer, I think. It's got the most beautiful eyes. People have this misconception that stray dogs like these have made a life for themselves there, and that life is not to be disturbed. You often get comments like, oh, how can you restrict them in an apartment when they're used to this freedom and stuff like that, which is what makes people not choose to adopt one of them. But it's a completely false perception of dogs, completely false. For dogs, we are their natural habitat. You can see how these strays keep looking for human interaction. They ended up living in a pack as a necessity and a means to survive, but what they are hungry for is human contact. They will always choose human contact before anything else. And the more they see you around, the more they long for you. They ended up recognizing my car, and I'd feed them, of course. Of course I fed them, but I know that they were not hanging around for the food. They were just hanging around a friend. And just like my dogs, that I don't feed them 24/7. I just spend time with them. It's just hanging around. These strays, they become acquaintances and then they become companions. It's like, you go to the store and you meet a friend and you hang out for a while. It's the same thing. They were waiting for and appreciating these few moments of quality time with someone they knew. For me, it's very difficult. It's difficult seeing the pet dogs, the privileged ones, including my dogs, they are privileged. And as with anything, any kind of rights in any society, privilege is something that makes absolutely no objective sense, because it derives from the way we decide to view things and from the names we assign to things and animals and people and groups of people and groups of animals. And the way we view things is subjective and flawed. And when it comes to stray dogs, being underprivileged and being seen as if you're something of less value because you are assigned the word stray in front of your species instead of the word pet is great injustice. And another thing is the constant victim blaming by people, humans, who are privileged because they have a home, they have a name, they have value in society. And the very existence of stray dogs becomes a problem in people's heads, for which problem they blame the actual victims, the dogs themselves. I guess the most important thing I learned from spending time with them is how falsely perceived information changes our perspective of things that should be objective. When I went to the store once to buy food for them, they followed me because they knew what I was about to do. Okay, so they came in. So the lady in there thought that they were actually my dogs, my pet dogs. That's one thing that hit me. She didn't recognize the dogs that had been living for months right in front of her store. So her initial reaction to shoo them out was interrupted because you don't shoo someone's dog. She apologized, and then she praised them for being so well taken care of and so polite, etc. And in that she also praised me for having my dogs so well taken care of. To which point I had enough. So I told her, look, these are not my dogs, they're the strays from here, where you live. And that confused her so much, because I think she was forced to see something she had been refusing to see for years, I guess. And it's a very good example of how privilege works and of how our false perceptions of something lead us to false judgments. As long as you think that something or someone has value in society because someone else has tagged it as valuable, you just play along. And you never really do your own estimation of what is valuable or worthy or clean or well presented or allowed in your store, your home, your community,